Good evening, everyone. I'm Alex Ago, the Director of Programming at the USC School of Cinematic Arts. Thank you. It's a great pleasure to welcome you tonight for this special screening of KAJILLIONAIRE and Q&A with writer-director Miranda July. Yes? I'm sure we'll be clapping for Miranda multiple times in this speech. Tonight's Q&A will be moderated by Nana Adwoa-Frimpong from our MFA program. And the screening tonight was generously sponsored by USC Visions and Voices, the Arts and Humanities Initiative. And I owe great thanks to Daria, Marie, Martin, Eve, Hector, David, and the whole VNV staff. The School of Cinematic Arts and the Visions and Voices program acknowledge that USC was built on the sacred land of the Tongva Nation. We honor the Tongva and all indigenous people, past, present, and future. Sorry. We honor the Tongva and all indigenous people, past, present, and future, and their continued survival and contributions to our society. We also honor the legacy of the African diaspora and recognize that this country would not exist without the free enslaved labor of Black people. We share these acknowledgements to pay respect to the original caretakers of this land, to raise awareness about histories that are too often erased or forgotten, and to affirm our commitment to social change. On a personal note about tonight's event, I drove to Orange County and braved the block at Orange in the height of a pandemic to see KAJILLIONAIRE when it came out in theaters last year, and I have been dying to share this film here in Norris Theater ever since. So thank you so much for joining us on a Friday night to enjoy this film as a community of film lovers. And thank you, Miranda, for agreeing to share your experiences making this film with us. So it's a great pleasure to welcome the writer-director of KAJILLIONAIRE and an icon of independent cinema, Miranda July.
Oh man, this is so you know, we all had our fantasies all through the pandemic, you know, like maybe one day when this is all over, and this was mine. And a lot of other things have happened, right? My kid has gone back to school, you know, that's huge. I've flown on an airplane. Other things have happened, but this has not happened, and I missed this, right, with this movie. I mean, you don't know, but I did. And so I remember when my agent forwarded the email that was like, should I pass on this? I was like, are you kidding me? Like, this is all I've been waiting for. And I mean, you know, quite honestly, it could have been like in someone's living room and I would have like jumped for it. So this is really quite grand, and it means so much that you all came out, and especially on an upsetting day. You know, I know that you could have done anything with your time tonight, and I'm glad that we're all here together. Thank you to Alex and to the Department of Cinematic Arts and to Voices and Visions. I'm sure I just botched every single one of those things. I hope you enjoy the film, and I'll be back here afterwards. Thank you.
And now, what a great honor and pleasure to welcome back Miranda July and Nana Adwoa-Frimpong to moderate the conversation.
Hello, check, check. Hi, thank you all so much for being here. A big thank you to Alex, as always, Visions and Voices, everyone here, and of course you, Miranda July.
Thank you.
This is so exciting. So we just finished watching KAJILLIONAIRE, and I heard when I was researching for our conversation that this idea came to you when you were falling asleep, half asleep.
Right.
So do you always have compelling and amazing ideas when you're about to fall asleep?
No.
Okay.
I mean, I think I had just woken up, and like full disclosure for the writers out there, I would want to hear this. Like, I had 2 full ideas and even written like a full 60-page script that both had what I call fatal flaws to them, and so I was like wanting to have an idea and had failed twice and then woke up, and so it wasn't like just so easy and magical. Yeah.
Okay. And what was the writing process like for you? How long did it take?
I mean, for me, not including those 2 other ideas, kind of concise. It was like a year and a half of writing. Yeah. And then I think and then the very concise thing that was very new to me was kind of having financing just happen immediately. Like, usually the end of the writing process is sort of the beginning of what could be a never-ending process of getting the money together. So that was tremendous to me. I was like still full of energy, not defeated feeling when I began, and I could put all that energy into like really prepping. Yeah.
And you are in so many ways a multi-hyphenate artist. I mean, you write short stories, you do shows, you write plays. How did you know, or when did you know that KAJILLIONAIRE was going to be a feature film?
Right. I mean, I'm basically just alternating between books and movies because and then I, try and do like art and performance things in the cracks. But because each of those things takes so long, I sort of feel like if I do 2 books in a row, then like people will really say it's been a long time since I made a movie, which of course just, like sends me right to therapy when I'm like, I was writing a book. Like, I wasn't just sitting around. Yeah.
When I Googled KAJILLIONAIRE, a bunch of articles came up, and I'm always interested in how other people describe the maker's work. And there were a lot of headlines or titles, whatever we call them. Miranda July's metaphorical vision of a world out of whack, California scheming, KAJILLIONAIRE is a quirky ode to human connection. I'm interested, are any of these descriptions apt to you? Like, when you made this work, did any of those things kind of jump out to you that people would resonate with or connect with?
I was like, I hope they call me quirky. No. No. I mean, I think I liked, occasionally there'd be an article that was like, this is a critique of capitalism, or like these sort of larger things that I felt like were there, but that were definitely like a take, and involved some authorship on the part of the person writing the article, rather than just like a description of the movie and then like that's always interesting to me to be like, right, that I'm glad you took that from it. Yeah.
I've heard you speak about your work where you say even starting in your 20s, a lot of your work was focused on or interested in how people try to connect with each other and the ways that people also sabotage those connections. What fascinates you about that, about people trying to find a lifeline in other people?
Right. I mean, I guess, yeah, for a long time, like after my first movie, people would always be like, you know, she's so interested in connection. And I was like, that's so huggy, you know, so cozy. And I don't really feel like that, although I totally get why one would think that. And then I realized, like, I think I'm, as you said, interested in the completely unique and sometimes wildly creative ways that people sabotage themselves. And we all do it. It sort of like becomes our style or even our art sometimes, or, you know, you know, it's what is specific about our relationships is the ways that we fail to connect, and then what we do in the face of that, you know. So to me, like, well, you could just do that all day, and it also kind of, like, through that lens, everyone's kind of an artist, like everyone's making something unique with what they have, you know, and it's imperfect, but it's like for something deeply felt, you know. Yeah. So to me, it's like everything can be reduced to that in a way. Yeah.
And how were those ideas kind of permeating your head when it came to KAJILLIONAIRE? And I'm thinking specifically of Old Dolio and her relationship with her parents.
Yeah. Why did I do that? I used to have all these answers down, and now I have to, like, actually think about that. I mean, you know, it's interesting. Like, I try and get pretty far just from my unconscious without really being like, what is this? And I remember on this one being like, well, funny cons, that seems a little bit like a waste of time maybe, but I'll just keep going with this. Seems kind of silly, but fun to write. And I got all the way through it every day, like, coming home from my studio and saying, like, I don't know, trying not to judge, you know, just keep going. And then I got to the end and read it back through and had this very punched in the gut feeling, like, so sad. And I was like, oh shit, this is really my story. This is about family. And if I'd knowingly gone straight towards that, I never would have. I mean, not only sort of repulsive to me, but I wouldn't know how to do it. But this way I was kind of like fun. You know, I was like laughing, and then crying. And then I thought, like, well, maybe that's the ride for the audience. Like, if I could do that. So I guess this is a little bit why, like, I'm not super articulate about that answer, because I managed to keep that structure from my unconscious and, like, hold it. But in there, I mean, I was watching from the booth, which I never do, but I don't know when I'll ever see this again on the screen. It's not like there's endless screenings coming up for this movie that's been out a while. So I was just like, fuck it, like, you know. And I'd say it's a sign of real growth and lots of therapy that I was watching it being like, oh my, okay, right, I've dealt with a lot of those things since making this. Like, yeah, so anyways, I in a while, I will soon be able to even be articulate about those things. But for now, all I can do is make movies about them.
Yes.
Yeah.
The scene that I love, there's so many scenes that I love, but when they are in the airport and Teresa and Robert kind of, like, walk off with Melanie and Old Dolio's kind of there, sad, some may say. The notion of, like, pretending, right? And you know, what it means to be, or to pretend that you don't know somebody in public, and what happens when those people are your parents and you stop pretending, or it just gets really strange. And it made me think, that whole scene made me think about just how relationships work, and the construction of relationships, and who we are with the people we love in private and public spaces. and how that gets complicated when you are related to those people and you have certain expectations of how they act. And so I'm interested to know, because this parent-child relationship is so stark and so important in this film, what about that relationship, the parent-child dynamic, do you feel like you're trying to parse out in this film?
Yeah, that scene was actually the first scene. That was when I woke up that morning. Yeah. It was that baggage claim scene. And so in a way, the whole movie was, built around that. Like, how did they get there? And then what happened? And it was the thing of your parents, like, you just turn it slightly and they're strangers. And I think that's the creepiest thing, is like when someone you know so well becomes strange. And I think that probably, I think I was like poorly attached, I think it's like you're always at risk of that if you don't have like a deep down faith that like no matter what we're family. If you don't feel that in your soul, then like seriously someone could just look at you strange and we're strangers and you're chilled and you panic or do whatever you do. So to me that was such a basic unit of measurement of any given day. Like, this is a very heightened version of it, but it's also very familiar to me. And yeah.
And I think that gets even more complex in the scene where Robert's he is professing his love, or he's telling his old Dolio, like, there's a lot of crying, a lot of emotion. And at the end I was like, wait, was that real? Even when I got to the end of the film, I was like, wait, was it real? And does it matter if it was real? Can you tell us?
I mean, me and Richard Jenkins, danced around that question a lot. And I mean, in my experience, it's like a speech like that can be totally real in the moment, and also nothing could change after that. And so then it sort of doesn't matter, like you are robbed just for having believed, just for having fallen for it, and I've had that feeling, like I'm like, this is it, I'm finally hearing the words I wanted, but it doesn't, it's just, you feel so tricked, for like falling for it. And I really like that idea of an emotional con like that was very resonant to me, yeah.
Was there ever a different ending?
No, yeah, it's all very, past a certain point in the movie, like, it had to work. Often in movies you're moving things around, and like, in this one, the way it's built towards that ending, I remember watching the first cut, the assembly, and total mess. I just wanted to die, but we got to the ending, and I was like, I think the ending works, so we should be good. Yeah.
Also love to talk about everyone's movement. I mean, like, it was swift, it was lyrical in moments. I'm wondering, was that on the page with how your characters were moving, or did that come with working with your actors?
Yeah, I mean, I wanted that, I guess, somewhat unconsciously. I mean, really only after this movie did I sort of consciously begin to realize, like, oh, dance is very important to me, or like the body, Yeah. But until then, and through this movie, I was still just very like, just the idea that like these security camera moves could be what she had to work with as a dance. And I don't know, I guess maybe it's also partly like, because I write fiction, to get to have real bodies, like you want to do stuff with that. Don't want them to just sit and talk. Like, I can do that with dialogue. So yeah, and then they were just wonderful. I mean, Evan, just knew how to do that tuck and roll, I mean, and of course I'm just like beside myself. I'm like, wow, because I've been doing like the very bad version of that for like 2 years at that point when she just like does it. Yeah. And I'm showing her what to do. I'm like, and then you'll jump and then you'll go like, and she's like, is that a tuck and roll or? And then she just like does it, and I'm like, okay. But I loved those things and kind of each of the actors finding their way in. Deborah, I mean, that was all there written, but it's so different with these real bodies. Yeah, and Evan certainly, I mean, watching it, I was kind of like, what does a director do again? Isn't it just the actors? Yeah. Like, you can't act for them, like, so they're so good, and I wish they were here. Okay.
I wish they were too. So it sounds like it was a true collaboration in terms of like building who these characters were. So I know that that's like Evan's voice, but
right.
Like a little.
Yeah, that low voice. Yeah.
That was like her regular register.
Yeah, she sort of presented me with this thing that she'd never used before. I mean, she's been acting since she was a child, but I guess her register, she's a singer, quite a beautiful singer, and she's getting vocal nodes, and so her low voice was trained up quite early on. So I don't totally understand, but I was like, so you're saying you could do that voice for the whole movie and that wouldn't be a problem? Because I really don't want to like ask you to do a weird thing that's just going to be unnatural. And I guess to me, I feel like in terms of like gender and gender presentation, like voice is very meaningful. Like it's not quite as mutable as hair or clothes, but it is one of those things that I think it is somewhat in your control. Like it does speak to a lot of things that I don't think Old Dolio was conscious of, but to me felt important for her. I mean, when you have a character that's so unknowing and so unpoliticized, it feels weird to say that they're non-binary or whatever, to project some gender identity onto them. But to me, the voice, I liked it for that reason. It kind of spoke to that part of her.
Yeah, and I've heard, I saw an interview where Evan talks about how Old Dolio for her is genderless. She's just Old Dolio, and we just accept that. When you spoke about body movement just now, I'm wondering how score impacted that, or did score come after?
In some cases, but like that song that, right? Oh, actually, I changed the song. Yeah, so it did all come after. Okay. The only song that was in there, that had to be in there, was the one Gina plays that my friend Summer Mastis made, because we didn't even have Emil, the composer, at that point. Who's also, a wonderful piano player. But yeah, so she's kind of dancing to a different song, but it works. Yeah. And yeah, the music, it was a weird case of, through a series of fuck ups on my part, of doing all the music after the cut was locked. Like Emil, the composer, saw the final locked cut as the first thing, and so we did it all at once, very together, and it's like sort of deeply creative process. So yeah, it wasn't tied to the performance in a way that would have been nice, but was still pretty wonderful. Yeah.
Somebody who performs and writes plays and does a lot of work where there's an audience that can actively react to your work, I'm interested to know what it's like for you, or if you feel any type of tension when it comes to making films. Is there something that you are trying to translate that performance gives you that movies don't? Do you think that there's a natural connection between the two mediums?
Well, I do think there's a way, so I wanted to be a director from the get-go, but instead started doing live stuff because that's what I could do easily as a teenager and a young person. And I think there's something about like you really just kind of live or die in front of the audience, like in real time, like, and so I have I guess a kind of like porous sense of, like I don't feel super precious. I do want feedback, like as I'm going, and and I think I learned that through performance, and performance is so iterative. Like, you perform it, you change it based on what happens each night, and I think I like that, like from the beginning, from the script to like keep kind of running it by people. Even I'm always trying to pull in people to read and watch who really aren't fans, maybe even don't like my stuff, just because I'm curious. Like, is the thing that you hate, how much does it matter to me? How much is it like stopping this whole ride for you? And maybe it matters a lot, but sometimes you can like glean something from like a hater, like, yeah.
Yeah, they always have something to say. Yeah. So we're at USC, an institution of learning, and there's a lot of students in the audience. And I'm curious, because you work across so many mediums and you're wonderful at everything. Yes, except. What is your relationship to failure, or even just the notion of trying?
Yeah, I'm pretty into failure. You kind of gotta be. Yeah. And I guess it's funny, I was talking to a friend, also an artist, someone I admire a lot, but she was saying that sometimes she doesn't trust herself because she can look at all these failures and think, well, I thought so much that was the right thing, but it wasn't. And I was like, oh shit, like I don't even want to know about that option, because I think like it's like, what is it? So you mess up, just trying to remember my process. And it's kind of like you're building the brain that's going to be smart enough to do the thing you set out to do. And the only way you can build that brain is through all these mistakes. So each mistake is like kind of gold, because like you're one step closer to that brain that's going to be smart enough. And I'm sort of wildly ambitious, like we all are, and I'm truly not smart enough to do that thing that I so boldly conceived of. So, and the same goes for like living, like when you have a couple of totally fucked up years, or just like going through a really hard time, I do always think like the more I can stay in this, like not try and distract, not try and like skip past it, the more powerful this whatever's happening inside of me will be, and kind of the more fantastic. I have quite glorious visions always of what the future's gonna be, and so I actually am like, fine, like bring it on, because I have really high hopes. So just let me feel it all. Like, let's not skip this now, because I have, I don't know. Okay, go on.
Thank you. Yeah. Claps. Yes. Amen. Okay. I think we can just open it up. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
So if anyone would like to ask a question, it's probably just best to have you line up here at the mic. Anyone want to kick things off?
There may be some ghosts already asking questions, and we just can't see them there.
Yeah.
Hi.
Okay.
My mom and I are very big fans. We've been following your career since I was a very small child, like 3-year-old child.
Wow.
She introduced me to your books, and I read them. And I wanted to ask you if there's any past, like, book that you've written that you would think about adapting into a movie, or if, something like that.
Right. Thank you, by the way. The mother-daughter fan thing just gets me, you know. That's very, very sweet. I guess I don't, I mean, truthfully, every time I'm writing a book, I'm like, oh my God, I can see the movie, you know, I'm gonna let it happen this time, you know. And then it's, truth be told, I don't want, like life's too short, you know, I wanna get to do the next thing, and the things are so personal that it's like, well, I'm done with that chapter. I've ruined that whole topic for myself. Hopefully it will be interesting to someone else. Yeah, so not thus far, but maybe this book I'm writing now, yeah, I don't know.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm also a really, really big fan and really looking forward to reading that book. I was wondering, you talked a little bit about the relationship of old Dolio to her parents, but I'm just wondering how you were kind of thinking about, you know, this kind of like reparenting as a queer person. Yeah, just.
Yeah. I mean, to me, that's just so real. Like, that's probably the most easily transparent part of the movie for me, and with my own experience. Like, and it still goes on. I mean, I think at one time I might have thought I was done with that, or that was about my 20s or something, but no, it's still like, we're still reparenting each other, and to me, that is probably like the center of my life. You know, there's like work, and then there's those relationships, which are so incredibly transformative and healing, and the two couldn't really exist without each other. Yeah. And so to have that in the movie, like, I love Gina's character, like, falling for old Dolio, and for old Dolio to be cared for, you know, and sort of taught this kind of pleasure, or that the things could be okay. I don't know. I still need to be taught that again and again. So I'm very grateful to the women who've done that. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I just want to say thanks for sharing your film with all of us tonight. You talked about failure being kind of like this exciting opportunity to just sort of be committed to the process. I'm wondering, how do you, as a director, how do you create an environment on set where your performers can feel comfortable enough to fail, and in the process somehow surprise you with things you may not have seen in the script on the page?
Right. I hope I do that. I mean, I don't know. I'm awfully, like, precise. I think, like, if I have an Achilles heel, it comes from being a writer, and comes from, like, having performed all the roles myself, sort of in my head, or even just kind of literally before. So I definitely err on the side of, like, micromanaging, and but I think I'm more and more conscious of, like, that does limit it. Like, all you're ever gonna get is what you hoped for, but that's, like, you can go past that. There's many other levels, you know, like, and the sophistication that can come from, you know, this collaboration is really something. So I think this movie was the most that, because these actors are so seasoned, you know, and so comfortable, that I just, again and again, they kept kind of shooting past my expectations, and so I think I hopefully started kind of letting go more. I also just really love them, you know? So maybe that's part of it. And I just feel tenderly. And I guess there's little ways that shows up and are just genuine, hopefully, despite whatever opposite, you know, controlling impulses I have. Like in my heart, you know, it's not totally different from how I feel about my child, which is just, you know, like, let's just see what could happen, you know, like trying to just make space for that. Yeah.
I'm so glad that you talked about Gina's character, because I love that character, and I came up here meaning to ask, when you were conceiving this, and with the dream and the stealing and everything, I was wondering, because she fulfills many roles in old Dolio's life, and I was wondering, what did you consider to be like the prime, like important role or whole in the story and in her life that Gina's character was coming in to fulfill? Because it's so broad. I was curious.
Right, like why did Gina do what she did, or?
No, I'm sorry. I just meant like what kind of woman she was that she could mean so much, and what was her like, her main role.
Yeah.
It's so difficult.
I mean, I guess I saw her as sort of like an audience avatar, almost like someone who would kind of ask the normal questions that you might, you know, just have like a normal reaction to these people, and to me that Gina was like a perfect, sort of like a modern all-American girl, you know, and in this way that I don't know, she just seemed like the perfect person for that, and that also she, you know, here these outsiders actually are not very radical, you know, they're like extremely controlling, and then she on the surface could seem just very conventional, and to me that was powerful, that she would have this, that she actually was this sort of emotionally rebellious person, and that we don't, you know, you don't know who that is. You can't, the codes don't determine that, you know, like, you know, class or how someone's dressed or whatever, you know, that's like a deeper thing. So I don't know. I liked that. Okay.
Hello, I'm a really big fan. I think you're wonderful, and I love a lot of your other films as well. And I was wondering, in some of your other films, like Me, You, and Everyone We Know, you're in them, and in this one you're not. Is there a difference between like being in the film while filming and just like observing by directing? And also, do you have any other films that you're working on for the future?
Right. Yeah, that morning when I had the idea, after I like wrote it down, I was like, oh, hold up. There is literally no one my age in this movie. and I did have like a pause, because that's a fun part of it for me. And then I was like, well, that's just meant to be. I mean, I love this idea. And then I sort of was like, oh boy, I get to be like full on director, and that's gonna be cool. And it really was like I mean, you just, when you're in it, you can't see it. You literally just can't see it. And in a movie that's pretty few days, like you can't watch it all back as you're shooting it. It'll take twice as long. So, yeah, so it gave me actually more time, just more space. And I love that. And I kind of thought, like, I don't know if I love to act, and I'm going to keep finding ways to do that, but I don't know if I need to act in my movie. I don't know. It gave me pause on the whole self-directing thing. Also, they're so good that I was like, oh shit, I don't know. I don't know what I was doing up there, but And then, for the future, yeah, I mean, I'm going to finish this book, and then I do have some, as the alternating thing. So there are some ideas after that. But I'm also kind of like all of us, probably like sort of trying to do everything differently. Like, who said I have to alternate like that? Who said, like what? Just, I don't know. I don't know what I'm going to do. Yeah, thanks.
I actually have a follow-up just to that.
Yeah.
When do you put yourself in? I mean, you're in a lot of your work, but I guess when do you know to back off your own stuff?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think acting's very connected to writing, and often I'm in there just because I'm there when I'm writing, and I'm there. It's like I'm the most immediate person to it. But it's funny, as I'm thinking, I realized like no, I can't say that. That's not cool. Okay, anyways, maybe we'll move on. Okay. Sorry.
It's okay, you're good. Hi. This has already been touched on a little bit in some of the other questions, but I was wondering, like, very specifically, as a multimedia artist, how did the other mediums that you work in intersect with or influence your narrative filmmaking?
Yeah, I mean, they all work on each other because they're all like this break from each other, and I'm just this one person. There's not like a team of people somewhere doing things for me, and so I guess whatever medium I'm not working in is a good kind of receptacle for my unconscious. So here I'm like sweating it out above ground, with whatever I'm working on. And meanwhile, there can be this whole playing field that I'm more like childlike about. I'm not super responsible for. And like while I was making KAJILLIONAIRE, the book that I'm writing now was that thing. And if it can get to be that child, irresponsible thing for as long as possible, then I think the better it is. That's kind of my new theory. Like, if you can not make it a thing till very late in the process, not make it a thing exactly what it is, you can add all that later, make it real, and but that unknowing is really I feel like it's like your wisest place, it's like going out ahead of your conscious mind and something more mysterious about it. So, wow, I barely even remember the question, but hopefully that applies.
Hi, I'm also a super fan. I dressed
This is
as
just like the greatest night of my life. Where have you guys been?
Yeah, I went as a Pawpaw for Halloween one year.
Oh
and
my God.
friend was Shirley. But
Wow.
I have another unanswerable question about the creative process and sort of productivity and procrastination. I always found a lot of hope in It Chooses You, and how an act of procrastination became such an integral part of the future and its own project in a way. And I was just wondering how you allow for that openness, and how you decide which projects you're going to stay married to and see out to the end. And but again, I know that's unanswerable.
Yeah. I mean, so some of what I just said, and then I mean, I am always writing, I use Evernote, and I have all these categories, and I'm always writing ideas down. So there's like art ideas and, the different categories that I work in. And then I guess I will say, because just to balance out the answer of like stay unknowing as long as possible, because I think that's really true. But that fatal flaw thing I mentioned earlier, that's a thing where that try as you might, you will never overcome that thing. And it might be like fatal flaws I've had in the past are, once there was something where I realized like, this probably isn't my story to tell. I really like this story, but I probably will never overcome that. There was another one where I realized like, it was too sad for me to be able to handle at that moment in my life. You know, there was like a little too much trauma in it that was too fresh. So it's like things that, so this is tricky though, because right, you're second guessing yourself all the time, like every other second. So you could be like fatal flaw, like, you know, and it's not that. This is like a real, be honest with yourself, because, you know, you have a finite amount of time on this earth, and like, if you see that thing, just you do the right thing and you say, peace be with you. Thank you for our time together. I learned a lot. And you have to trust, like, everything you learned is going to come in the next thing. And I mention that only because I sometimes see people like holding on death grip for an insanely long time to something. And it could be that if you let it go, all the energy of the thing will be kind of reincarnated in something that will quite quickly have its own energy and happen and get made or whatever. And that it's a real hard thing to know, like when you're second guessing yourself and when it is appropriate to let go. So I don't know. Thank you.
Thank you for making such beautiful, exquisite, joyful, sad, and hilarious movies. The second scene in the gas station bathroom, there's so much going on that's metaphorical, but specifically the way that the visuals transition to stars is what I saw. But if you could talk about that a little bit, the genesis of that, or
yeah, thank you. That in particular. For me, that, you know, that scene barely works on your home computer. Like, you'd have to have a very dark room, and so I was like, oh, I got to see that one more time, you know. Yeah, so the idea was that it would be black. I knew that in the script what there was these, what did I call them? Like little highlight, like that there'd be like two little things in the space. I think it's like her belt buckle, little gleams, shine, whatever they're called. And that those would shake, and that's how you could see, how you could believe it was shaking, so it wasn't just a sound thing. And that were, you know, that's a clever, cheap way, you know, maybe clever. We're just cheap. I remember them telling me I had to cut one earthquake. We couldn't afford, because, you know, each one of those involved a certain amount of like real effects in the moment. And I was like, oh, are you kidding me? But I did cut a tremor. But that one, you know, was so simple. And then it was going to be black, and I started to just realize, like, you just leave. You just leave the screen. If it's black, you're just gone. You look somewhere else. You look at your phone. You know, it's very hard to keep someone on a screen. So then I started playing with those gleams and like having them move. Remember in the editing room, like just animating them in weird ways, you know. And I liked that sort of abstraction, because that's kind of mirrored the abstraction going on in Old Dolio, you know, like the shift in scale. And then I remember someone gave me notes saying, like, seems like at that moment it just, the whole movie needs to like supernova out. And I was like, oh, I gotta just go big. Like, this is cinema, you know? Like, it was built for this. And this is like my Marvel moment or something, you know? Like, I have to scale up here. And so, yeah, then I described, it's actually my best friend, Isabel, her and her partner have a company, and they, you know, could make those stars. So I got to work with them, these people dear to me, to make those. And we talked a lot about like her internal state, and, you know, how do they turn, and what kind of depth do they have? And so you can describe that to people who've only seen it on a computer, how that felt. Yeah.
Hi, I just wanted to say thank you and that I really admire your work, particularly like the short form stuff you've done with Margaret Qualley on Instagram.
Oh.
That just like broke down what I thought film and cinema could be and excited me in a lot of ways.
Cool.
But also, just like you've talked about how you latently tell your own story and tell your own truth through your filmmaking and through your writing, which happen to be reflective of like female experiences. And how you navigate the industry as just an artist who's just telling their story and their truths, not as a female filmmaker or like a woman in the industry.
Wait. So the question was, how do I do that just as a person, not so much as a female filmmaker?
Yeah.
Right. I know, that's a tricky thing. Like, I will say this, the weird thing about working in the different mediums is this is the most sexist one. And like, I'm in a position to see that because like, you know, tons of women write books, you know, like I mean, there's sexism everywhere, but this one really takes the cake. And it's weird, you know, it's weird. And it's for sure gotten better. But then for me personally, like I became a mother and, you know, things got more complicated when suddenly like me and my filmmaker partner weren't having the same experience as parents, you know? Like there was no question that he was going to keep making movies after he became a dad, whereas that actually was a question. That was a question like me and my friends had, you know, like there was a sense that you sort of die almost, you know, that transformation. And I think women transform a few times in their life quite dramatically in a way that men don't. And not that men don't transform, but it's like built into the biology. And so the whole system is not built for that. You know, they're all built around men, and the more systematic the system is. So books, you know, who cares how anyone writes a book? There's no rules. There's not unions. There's, you know, whereas this industry is filled with rules and structures, and none of them are built around women, and none of just our conceptions on top of all those like sort of unconscious things have to do with women. So it's a very insidious, like you feel it. You feel like this was not made for me, for us, or for so many other kinds of people. Like it wasn't like other arts, you know, like other arts, like anyone could sing, anyone could paint, you know, it wasn't made that way. It was like a very expensive thing. But I have no idea what the question was. I do think like some people might be kind of, filmmakers might be like, TikTok, all these things, you know, these different mediums. And yes, there's horrible things. I mean, you know, fucking Facebook, all, you know, for real, Meta, whatever. But it didn't have to be that way. And there is something very creative available there. And I do appreciate that, like, the medium has to become more available to be a real art. You know, it's not a real art if only certain people can do it. So there is something, I think, important about the evolution of the very real medium of filmmaking through these, you know, things that are easy to write off, but I wouldn't. And I think there's even something, there's something for women there. There's something in the mutability of it that, whatever, I completely lost my thing. But you kind of see where I'm going with this. Oh boy. No. All right, well, I feel like I just, you know, they're pulling me off with a hook now. It's like there's nobody there. You are all very, or maybe there is, sorry. You're somebody, please.
Hi.
And then, yeah.
Hi, I think you're the best. I always give your books as gifts because they mean so much to me. But I wanted to sort of hear you talk about the scene so the gas station scene after the stars scene,
Yeah.
where it just gets very like trembly and like none of the other shots were shot like that, right?
Yes.
And it just felt very like the way, like the manic response to like a traumatic event or something
Yeah.
like that. And so I don't know, I just wanted to hear you.
Yeah, thank you. I love that. It is, so it's from the moment they leave the bathroom until Old Dolio's crawling, that's all one shot, you know? So we didn't cut, and that felt really right for that exact feeling, you know, that's, yeah, when all you just thought you were gonna die and then you didn't, so you're kind of high. And yeah, and it was sort of like I always thought of oneers as like kind of macho, like what do I need to prove? I didn't cut. But when me and Sebastian, it was Sebastian who suggested that, like, we would kind of each throw out different ideas. If you had an idea for a scene, like, throw it out. And he was like, you're not, you know, you might hate this, but I could see right away, like, oh, it's also going to kill it to have to keep moving and setting up, you know, for the actors to get to just go. And those two also, I knew, like, they are so sharp and so good at choreography, you know? So I loved that day. 17 takes, we used the 17th, and then we're done. There's no editing. You don't have to edit it. It's just done. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you for coming out. I just want to say I appreciate you coming out, and this is my second time seeing the movie, and I hate to play the token adolescent male, but this time it reminded me a lot of Fight Club, actually.
Oh.
And for some reason, the fact that sort of old Dolio and her family meet Gina's character on a plane, they've gone into the unknown, they're returning home, and they sort of meet this new character, similar to Tyler Durden in Fight Club. Both movies seem to be kind of like modern myths to me, like, you know, people disenfranchised, disenchanted with modern life, and they sort of go off on sort of journeys of sorts, even if they don't know they're going on them, and they sort of find sort of an extreme anchor point. Tyler Durden is obviously very different from Gina's character in this, polar opposites even, but they definitely seem to be very rooted in sort of the archetypal, you know, enter the unknown and then sort of meeting the guide. I don't know. Do you have anything to say about
you found me out. No, I can't remember that movie, but it. But I love to think of you thinking that, and I think that was probably a good movie, and I don't know. So I'm, you know, you liked it. I don't. I think so. Anyways, I wish I could say. I mean, yeah. There certainly are movies, probably, don't ask me to name them, that have seeped into my consciousness, and I'm sure I'm copying, but not that particular one. Yeah, thank you.
Hi, wow, I feel shy. Seeing this film, as well as seeing me and you and everyone we know, I felt this, especially when I walked out of the theater that first time, I felt transformed in a way that I don't experience when I see pretty much, maybe Fight Club, but like
Okay.
any other film, like I just walk out and know that was a thing and that was nice, okay. But I just want to share the appreciation of feeling like I'm seeing with new eyes, and I'm seeing with a sense of curiosity and, I mean, just like artful eyes, like creative eyes and curious. And so I just feel grateful for that. And I'm curious how, you know, kind of calling back to a previous question, you started talking about, I want to say the feminine, like having space for the feminine. It feels like I'd just be really curious well, it's amazing that you create. Are you laughing?
No.
Um,
I'm laughing.
what is it? It's like amazing that you were able to create that experience even inside the context of the confines of what you felt in the sexism. And I'm curious what a feminine film experience of creating films might look and feel like if you were to have your fantasy of anything.
Right. Well, yeah, I mean, I should say, like, this was, the things that I'm talking about are so baked in. Like, this was a great experience for me. It was the best I'd had. And, you know, it helped that I had, like, a very powerful woman producer, Dee Dee Gardner, like, but what would that look like? I mean, I don't know. I did actually, after this, make something that's not in the world yet, but I made something with a really tiny crew. And actually, even the Margaret thing, I did this project on Instagram with Margaret Qualley. Like, I did that after KAJILLIONAIRE, and it was like, as great as it was working at this larger scale, my instinct was there is also something lost, and that the reason to make things in a small way isn't just because, like, you don't have the resources, that there is something very alive and resilient and safe about that scale, and that you could choose it just in its own right. And I've done that a few times. I mean, the film things I've worked on since then have been smaller. You know, they've also been all women crews, or just women or non-binary people. And yeah, so I don't know exactly. I guess I'm, like, feeling my way towards it, and it will say, like, that's as I come into my own. So it's, you know, with my first movie, like, I was just bluffing. You know, I was, like, happy to be there and, like, hoping no one would call me out for not knowing the names of certain jobs, and, you know, so it's it's sort of like a lifelong process in a way, knowing the answer to that question, like, what is, I think, yeah, trying to address it a little bit in the thing I'm making now. To be continued.
Thank you so
Yeah.
much. Yeah.
Thank you.
Hi, thank you so much for coming and speaking with us today. You're a big reason that I decided to come back to school and pursue a film degree, actually. I wanted to ask, you have such a distinctive voice and rhythm with your writing, and you mentioned that you come at filmmaking with such a meticulous eye. As an editor, could you speak a little bit about your relationship with your editor? How much are you in the cutting room? How much, you know, trust or flexibility?
Right.
What's that like?
Yeah, I'm always there all day, every day, because that, you know, I think people who are into writing are usually into editing too, you know? It's like the control freak part of the process. And this editor, Jen Vecchiarello, just fucking loved. I think I may have, like, been in love with her. No, it just, in retrospect, I remember I was like, did I give her a diamond necklace at the end of our, like, that was an extreme move. But it's just like, you're in the trenches. It was very tiny. You're in the trenches with this person, and it's your baby together, and, like, there's sort of this war with time and with feedback, and, you know, you're, and it really, it was a great process. I always kind of love that process, even when, you know, I've had it several times, like, the editor change for one reason or other halfway through. That can be good too, you know, because then there's fresh eyes and all that. But I was just remembering, I was talking about, like, credit with someone the other day, and how as you get more confident, you just naturally give credit more. You realize like it doesn't, I only am more powerful the more I credit people, and how really embarrassing example of me being young and insecure is on my short movies. It's edited by always the editor's name and Miranda July. And I was like, but I'm there the whole time. And anyone, I'm sure if I'd known, you know, someone could have said, yeah, everyone knows that, you're the director. Like, it's the editor, you know, that's their job, is to like also deal with you sitting there all the time, you know? And so, yeah, I look, every time I see that on those short films, I just want to die, you know? Anyways, yeah, some editing anecdotes. There's also some crazy editing shit in this movie. That toothpick scene did not happen. At the end at the table, that was all made in editing. And that's my favorite thing, is when I did this in Me and You also, like when I have an idea, for complicated reasons, that toothpick was already in the movie. It was something else was supposed to happen with it, but I cut that out. And then I was like, it kind of sucks that there's this toothpick for no reason, and you give me wood. And I was like, ooh, wouldn't it be so cool if she could give it to Gina? Like, that's such a queer ass thing to do, you know? And I remember shooting it on my phone, handing it to Jen, that editor, and like being like, okay, we can shoot that. We can't get that whole restaurant back, but we just need the right looks. We need to find Gina looking down. We need that mom giving some weird look, like she just saw that. And it was all, I mean, those actors, it wasn't even Gina's hand, because we didn't get her back for that day of reshoots. It was like another brown hand. And so, yeah, I mean, Gina must have seen that and been like, wait, what? Like, that never happened. Anyways, that stays in this room, okay? But editing, right? Such magic.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll take one final question.
You guys are such like survivors that you're here at the end. I mean, awards all around. Okay.
Hello. Love the film. It's one of my favorites. You have some pretty unique locations, and like the post office and the bubble factory, and even like the gas station bathroom, like so distinct. And I was curious, like, as part of your writing process, are you visualizing locations, or do you feel like really inspired by space, or are you kind of focusing more on like story and character, and that's coming later? Some of those things.
Right. Well, I write them very specifically, and then I get, you know, I'm working with the locations person, and I'm like a child or a like dumb person or something. Like I remember the location person saying, and I'd said, well, you know, the bathroom, it's like it's not attached to them, so we need a mini mart, a bathroom, and it has to be like a bar there, and because the bath, you know, for the story, the bathroom has. And he was like, yeah, I'm pretty sure we can't get all those things, you know, in a way that's going to work. You know, you piece it together. And I was like, I'm sure this exists. I'm sure, you know. So a lot of it is like, you just kind of stick to it and believe in the magic. I remember finding that bathroom that just says bathroom written on the door and Sharpie, you know, and just being like, God bless this place, you know. And yeah, and the bubble factory also, like just driving around, and then that place had some sort of cartoony things about it already, you know, like these ducks. I think it was like a steel factory or something. And those are, yeah, just so fun to me. And when we're location scouting, I'm, you know, even though I'm not acting in the movie, I go in there and the DP's there and stuff, and I act out the whole scene for everyone there, and it's my way of kind of testing, can this work here, and discovering the space and stuff. And then Sebastian, the DP, would take kind of pictures of me as all the characters. So I have this whole like in photos version of the movie of just me getting my shining moment. But it is, yeah, I do love that moment of kind of, you know, with my body kind of working into the space, and then I'm like, this could work. And everyone's so relieved, yeah. All right, I think we did it.
Yes, we did.
Every last question. Woo! Thank you.
Thank you so much. Such an honor.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Yeah, real pleasure. Now I can move on with my life. Okay, thank you guys.